Now, a new segment on Weather Center Live we call the Forecast Factor. It's a chance to break down the link between the weather and your wallet. We're getting closer to summer, but the economy is still feeling the effects of this past winter. So let's go right now to weather business expert Paul Walsh. And Paul,
hey,
a brutal winter. Thanks for joining us first off. Brutal winter we're trying to leave behind us, and it's still impacting the economy. Is that right?
That's right. So the IMF just projected for the year that the economy is going to grow a little bit less than what they had expected going into the year. And the reason is because it was so cold during the first 3 months of the year that our economy basically froze in place. In fact, the entire output of the economy of the U.S. for the first 3 months decreased by 1%, which is a huge number. And that has obviously an impact across the economy as a whole.
And so now that it is warming up, what does that mean for businesses across the country?
So what happened was it was kind of like a coiled spring where everything was frozen in place. And as soon as the weather warmed up, it didn't even need to get warm. It just started to get warmer about around the end of March. And spring basically sprung. It was like the economic engine just opened up, and we saw this huge surge in economic activity that went through April and into May. Slowed down a little bit, but we had just this big burst in economic activity. So even though we had this slowdown that was caused by the weather, which, by the way, was anticipated by the people that are trading on Wall Street, so we didn't see an impact on the stock prices, and we saw this huge input in terms of economic activity, and we really sort of are benefiting from that. So even though we had to slow down, we're going to see a big impact in terms of growth as we move through the balance of the year.
And Paul, let's talk about hurricane season, a bit of a wild card. What does it mean if it's an active season or if it's a quiet season like it was last year, or is it more the anticipation of one or the other?
Chris, I'm a little bit worried about the hurricane season this year because it obviously has a big impact on the economy. It has an impact on energy prices. And one of the risks I think we face this year is the fact that we didn't have a landfalling storm last year, or certainly a strong landfalling storm. So people start to get a little bit complacent when you don't have a storm. That memory starts to fade a little bit. And then on top of that, the forecasts are for a relatively quiet year. Of course, we know that that doesn't mean there won't be any storms. So any storm activity, I think, this year will be much more impactful than it would be on a normal year because it's been so quiet for so long, and the expectation is it'll stay quiet.
And Paul, what sector of business is impacted the most by hurricane season?
Probably the biggest impact will be on the energy sector. So when we start to see storms moving into the Gulf and getting close to the Gulf rig system, you'll see an immediate impact in terms of the price of gasoline and the price of oil. And again, it's been so long since we've had a storm. When we start to see storms this year, I think that impact will be stronger than it would be normally just because we're not ready for it. It's been a while since we've seen a storm, and you know they're going to be coming. We just don't know exactly when and where.
All right. Our weather and business expert, Paul Walsh, thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to talking with you again in the future.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Time now for the top 5.